Sarah worked double shifts at Pete's Diner, barely making enough money to pay rent and support her sick mother. On a cold December evening, she saw two wealthy businessmen laughing at an elderly homeless man. They kicked his belongings into a puddle, leaving him shivering in the cold. Sarah knew these men were regular customers who always left big tips, which she desperately needed. But she couldn't stay silent. "Stop that right now," she said firmly, stepping outside. One of the men turned, his face red with anger. "Mind your own business, waitress. We eat here every week. Then find somewhere else to eat. Robert is a human being and he deserves respect," Sarah replied. The men stormed inside to complain. Sarah bent down to help Robert gather his wet belongings. She handed him her lunch and found him a dry newspaper. Minutes later, Pete, her boss, called her into his office. "Sarah, those men are my best customers. They want you fired." "But they were hurting someone who couldn't defend himself," Sarah protested. Pete sighed. "I can't afford to lose their business. I'm sorry, Sarah. Get your things." She untied her apron and walked out, holding back tears. How would she pay for her mother's medication now? Sarah sat on a bench outside, trying to calm herself. The evening air was getting colder. Robert slowly approached her, holding the newspaper she had given him. "You should not have lost your job because of me," he said softly. "I couldn't watch them treat you that way," Sarah replied. Just then, a black car pulled up. 3 men in expensive suits stepped out. Their suits made the businessmen from earlier look cheap. The oldest of the 3, a tall man with gray hair, scanned the area. Robert spoke up. "Are you looking for the waitress who helped me? This is her." The man turned to Sarah, his eyes kind. "My name is Michael. These are my associates, James and Daniel. We were having dinner across the street when we saw what happened." Sarah stood up nervously, smoothing her uniform. We talk inside? It's getting cold out here," Michael suggested. "I should head home. My mother is waiting." Sarah hesitated. "Please, just 10 minutes. What you did tonight. We'd like to hear more about why you did it." Inside a nearby coffee shop, they sat at a corner table. Michael ordered coffee for everyone, including Robert. "How long have you worked at the diner?" Michael asked. 3 years. It was enough to help with my mom's medical bills, at least until today." James opened his briefcase, taking out some papers. Michael continued. "We own several restaurants in the city. We've been looking for someone to manage our new training program for staff." Sarah looked confused. "I don't understand. What you did tonight showed character. You chose what was right over what was easy. That's exactly the kind of person we need. The position pays $80,000 a year with full benefits." Sarah's hands trembled around her coffee cup. This had to be a dream. "Why me?" "You don't even know me," she whispered. Michael smiled. "Sometimes you learn everything you need to know about a person from a single moment of courage." Sarah stared at the business card Michael had given her. The office address was in downtown Chicago, just a few blocks away. Her mind was racing with questions. "I appreciate the offer, but I've never managed anything before. I'm just a waitress." Michael leaned forward. "You've handled difficult customers, managed busy shifts, and trained new staff. That's real experience. James here started as a dishwasher 15 years ago. Now, he oversees 5 of our restaurants." James nodded. "Skills can be taught, Sarah. Good character is what we can't teach." Daniel pulled out a folder. "The training program needs someone who understands restaurant work from the ground up. Someone who can teach our staff how to treat both customers and co-workers with respect." Sarah thought about her mother, probably worried sick at home. Could I start next week? I need to find someone to help care for my mom during the day. Of course, Michael said. We'll provide health insurance from day one. It covers family members too. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes, this time, for a different reason. Her mother could finally get the treatment she needed. Robert, who had been quietly sipping his coffee, spoke up. Sarah, good things happen to good people. Take the job. Michael turned to Robert. We could use your help, too. Our restaurants partner with local shelters. Would you be interested in coordinating our meal donation program? It's a part-time position and includes housing assistance. Robert sat up straight. You're offering me a job, too. Michael nodded. You showed dignity under harassment and spoke well of Sarah even after what happened. That tells me a lot about your character. Sarah watched as Robert's hands steadied for the first time that evening. His eyes looked brighter. James handed them both employment contracts. Take them home, read them carefully. We can meet tomorrow to discuss any questions. Sarah looked at the papers, then at Robert. Just hours ago, she had lost her job defending him. Now, they were both being offered fresh starts. Why did you really come looking for me? Sarah asked Michael. Because kindness is rare in this business, he replied. And when we see it, we want it on our team. 6 months had passed since that night at the diner. Sarah sat in her new office, reviewing training schedules for a new restaurant opening. Her mother's health had improved with proper medical care thanks to the insurance. Sarah smiled, remembering how her mom had cried when she first walked without pain in years. A knock on the door brought her back to the present. Robert stood there, looking different from the man she had met that cold evening. His clean suit and trimmed hair gave him a professional appearance. The shelter coordination meeting is starting, he said. We need your input on the new meal distribution system. In the conference room, familiar faces from local shelters sat alongside restaurant managers. Robert beamed with pride. The summer meal program served over 3,000 people last month, he announced. We've partnered with 5 new shelters since spring. Sarah watched him speak, amazed at how far he had come. His program had grown beyond meal donations. Now, they offered cooking classes, job training, and support services. Many former shelter residents now worked in their restaurants. After the meeting, Michael approached Sarah. Remember those 2 customers from your old diner? Sarah looked up. Tom and David. Michael nodded. They tried to make reservations at our new location. She raised an eyebrow. What did you tell them? That our restaurants have a strict policy against harassment. They're not welcome here. Sarah smiled. Her life was different now. She wasn't just surviving. She was helping others build better lives too. She touched the old name tag from Pete's Diner she kept in her desk drawer. One moment of standing up for what was right had changed everything. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness creates ripples that change the world.